When a horse loses control, it does not panic. First, it slows down, then it starts giving the wrong signals, and no one has noticed it yet, because loss of control does not arrive screaming. On the contrary, it arrives quietly. The horse continues to run within the herd, but it is no longer in rhythm. No one warns it, no one tries to touch it, only the space narrows. If this feels familiar to you, yes, I think it does, because humans are the same. A human does not disappear by shouting, but by slowly fading away, quietly dissolving. No one notices. I am not talking about a drama here. This is the story of how control is lost silently, and by the time you realize it, it is already too late. Welcome to my video. I'm James. In this video, I will talk about horse psychology, loss of position within the herd, and how closely animals' internal balance resembles that of humans. Without further delay, let's begin. Enjoy watching. Horse herds do not structure their lives around speed or constant competition. What holds them together is far more delicate. Rhythmic harmony. Each individual moves in the world within an energy-based order, before a physical one. The lead mare does not impose order by kicking dot. She establishes it through posture, through timing of movement, through the natural flow of distance. A lower-ranking horse does not learn its place through violence. It knows because it internalizes the rhythm of the group. This map is not innate, it is learned, reinforced, and kept alive through thousands of micro-interactions that take place daily within the herd. Horses do not scatter chaotically while grazing. For example, young foals wait. They carefully observe experienced horses as they take position. They suppress the impulse to run too early or break away from the group. This is not instinctive. It is learned patience. We are talking about a restrained management of energy. It is the product of a nervous system capable of reading social distance and prioritizing group safety over individual panic. Horse that cannot position itself this way becomes surplus, both in the herd and in life. It makes the group tense. It disrupts the rhythm. It exhausts the herd unnecessarily. Over time, the herd begins to exclude this horse not through open attack, but through positioning. Yes, just like humans. First the horse falls behind the formation, then ends up far ahead. Then on the side. This is called disorder. They do not accommodate it. They do not pity it. The psychological cost of maintaining control remains invisible until it disappears. Asterisk. Asterisk. A healthy horse moves through the world in its own way. Almost every horse has characteristic behaviors unique to itself. It is alert, but not panicked, of course. Traumatized horses are different, just as with humans. Some animals are psychologically more sensitive. It retreats, but does not leave the herd. It competes, but withdraws when it understands it will lose. This balance requires immense internal regulation. The horse constantly reads its environment, monitors the energy of herd members, adjusts its own arousal, and decides when to move and when to stop. This is not a small process. It is active, continuous, and exhausting. The horse's brain works constantly to maintain balance, to avoid being pushed into freezing or fleeing. Yes, just like in humans, defense mechanisms, personality traits, temperament, and character dynamics function exactly this way in horses. This seems to be a rule of life. It exists in every living being. When we observe a herd from the outside, We see an apparent order. We notice animals moving together as if choreographed. What we do not see is the internal effort required to produce this flow. No one notices the small mistakes that come before the big collapse. There is only one moment when things become visible, when the horse is no longer part of the rhythm. At that point, deterioration has already begun. Loss of control is not an event, it is a process, and it starts long before anyone notices. Quietly in life, signals begin appearing long before an event occurs. Most people simply fail to notice them. Is noticing this a skill, or is it sensitivity? That is debatable, but if you ask me, it is a law of life. Life shows no mercy. Life is harsh. Control does not vanish. Suddenly, it disappears slowly, often without anyone noticing. Even briefly drifting away from the herd causes a horse to show signs of imbalance. I am talking about the smallest details. For example, resting patterns change or disappear. Psychologically, the horse constantly scans the environment for threats that do not actually exist. The absence of social structure eliminates the external framework that keeps internal order alive. Without predictable interactions that define behavioral boundaries, the horse's nervous system destabilizes. The horse does not forget how to regulate itself. Regulation requires context. When that context disappears, every established system begins to collapse. Hunger accelerates this process drastically. A well-fed horse can wait for almost anything in life. It can observe and choose the right moment. A hungry horse cannot. Hunger replaces reason. Behavioral control weakens. Significantly, the horse becomes reactive rather than thoughtful. It tries to eat things it normally would not. It enters areas it would never go to. This is not a rational choice, is survival mechanisms beneath awareness taking over the regulatory system. The horse does not want to lose control. It is pushed into a state where control is no longer accessible, and that signals that things are going badly. Any subsequent injury adds another layer to the collapse. Pain is a signal that constantly demands attention, makes focus extremely difficult. A lame horse cannot participate in social interactions. It cannot run, it cannot give or read the subtle signals that maintain hierarchy. Other horses begin to exclude the lame individual, not through cruelty. They do not attack or injure. They create distance. No one blocks you, but no one invites you anymore. The lame horse senses this exclusion before any interaction even happens. Its position declines rapidly, so fast there is no time to resist. By the time the horse realizes it has lost functionality and performance, its position is already destroyed. Loss of status is not a dramatic fight. A horse that once had a place realizes that this place is no longer recognized by others. The herd begins to act as if it does not exist. No one challenges it anymore. No one accounts for it. This is more painful and damaging than direct conflict. Conflict at least confirms existence. Invisibility is far worse. It devastates both animal and human psychology. The horse remains with the group, but it is no longer the same horse. It no longer influences direction. It is excluded from every decisive factor you can think of. The horse is now on the edge, and being on the edge is slow evaporation, a kind of decay. During this phase, the horse deteriorates psychologically. Rules that once governed behavior stop. Working previously accepted behaviors are ignored, they no longer even carry meaning. Attempts to regain position mean nothing to the herd. The horse finds no solid ground. It oscillates between trying to reintegrate and withdrawing further. Every failed attempt deepens loss of position and trust. The horse is not losing its mind, is losing the structure that allows the mind to function coherently. Without that structure, everything turns into chaos. The mechanisms governing horse psychology are not exclusive to horses. Human nervous systems operate under the same principles of regulation and collapse. Person maintains psychological balance through constant internal effort, treating social cues, suppressing inappropriate responses, regulating emotional surges, and sustaining a coherent sense of position. This is not effortless. It is exhausting. It requires energy, attention, and a relatively stable external context. When that context fractures, regulatory systems come under pressure. Chronic stress creates a collapse similar to what we observe in isolated or injured horses. The body enters a prolonged state of high alert. Resources meant for repair are redirected to threat response. Sleep becomes shallow and irregular. Every detail I describe destroys both physical and mental health in humans, just as it does in horses. Attention becomes fragmented. Small events provoke large reactions. This is not a character flaw, it is a nervous system pushed beyond its regulatory capacity. People never choose to lose control. They experience a systemic failure of the mechanisms that normally prevent it. Role loss in humans mirrors status loss in horses. A person who defines themselves by function, career, family, social role experiences deep collapse when that function disappears or is no longer recognized. They become disoriented. External markers that support internal coherence vanish. They continue living, but no longer know where they belong or who they are. Others begin interacting differently, often in subtle, unchallengeable ways. Invitations stop, conversations shorten. No one actively excludes them. They simply lose importance in others' mental maps. This is more damaging than open rejection. Burnout is the human equivalent of a horse that can no longer run. Life continues, but the internal resources for effective functioning are gone. What once was manageable becomes unbearable. The gap between what a person knows they should be able to do and what they can actually do creates a self-monitoring loop that further depletes capacity. They are not lazy. They are experiencing regulatory collapse. The nervous system prioritizes survival over performance, and in modern life, that means failing to meet expectations. Simply put, collapse. The most disturbing part of this parallel is how invisible the process is from the outside. A person may look fine while internally collapsing. Just as a herd fails to immediately notice a horse losing control, social groups fail to notice human collapse. The person is still present, still responding, still fulfilling basic responsibilities. Psychological devastation is invisible when it becomes noticeable. Recovery is already extremely difficult. Loss of control is a private emergency occurring in public. When a horse completely loses control, the herd makes no effort to rehabilitate it. There is no recovery, no assistance. Other horses increase their distance. They do not attack. They do not chase it away. They simply stop, engaging as if it no longer exists. The horse may follow the herd for days or weeks, existing on the periphery, but it is no longer truly part of the group, and it feels that way. Numbness begins. Psychological exclusion precedes physical separation. Eventually, the horse stops following. Whether this is a choice or acceptance of an inevitable reality is unclear. These excluded horses are rarely observed because they become invisible. They cannot survive long alone without group protection. They are vulnerable to predators. Injury and illness become likely. A solitary horse rises to the top of a predator's list. A horse that loses control does not get a second chance. It is erased from records. Observers focus only on the functioning herd. They do not look at those no longer part of it. The herd's stability is built on the silent elimination of individuals who cannot regulate themselves on human contexts. The same pattern follows collapse. The person is not punished, but they are no longer included. Opportunities fade. Invitations stop. Interactions become transactio. They share the same spaces, but no longer shape decisions. They are erased from future plans. Control matters only while it exists. Once lost, there is little interest in restoring it. An unstable individual is seen as a risk. Groups respond not with support, but with distance. This is not a moral failure. It is a systemic response to instability, but it means the individual is left alone. Everything required to restore regulation, social support, predictable routine. Reintegration is precisely what disappears when control is lost. That is the law of life. Cruel. I've lived through similar experiences. I was excluded. I'm sure you have. Till we only recognize control as the invisible, the foundation of social existence. Once it's gone, when we see someone without it, we retreat. That is true for horses and for humans. A horse that loses control is not remembered. It simply stops being seen, and the herd continues, more coordinated, more stable, having removed the threat to its cohesion. There is no solution here, only the harsh truth of exclusion and the impermanence of control. Control is constant effort. It can fail at any moment for anyone, and when it does, the world does not stop. It continues without you. Horses do not know this. We do, and perhaps that is what makes it harder. We see it coming. We cannot stop it. And that is the worst part. This is the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to your comments and perspectives. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Wishing you wonderful times, James.